Hello, and welcome back to part 3 of Relationships and Ethics in Ministry. And I hope that you have been learning some things, and I hope that it's been meaningful to you. We talked about about the importance of believing in the second coming of Jesus Christ, and that we as ministers should proclaim that and also live that. We should be both live with a prophetic voice and be a priest who lives and prays righteously before the congregation and community. Now, I want to look at a couple of things about contemporary moral issues. There's a number of things, of course, today, and I'm just going to go through a number of issues. I don't have the time on this video to give you all the information on this, but if you are part of the Assemblies of God, I encourage you to go to ag.org and look at the Assemblies of God position papers on all of these topics. For example, divorce and remarriage. What does the Bible say about that? What is the ethical and moral stance on that? About abortion. The ethical solution to the spiritual problem behind abortion in the church today is that the church should assume responsibility for the spiritual decline in our nation that's led to this tragedy. We can protest the abortion clinics, but if we're not doing what God's called us to do, to be the salt and the light, the emphasis upon love and helping people who are dealing with the decision of abortion, churches should be involved, and I'm so thankful for that. About euthanasia, there's really a very important topic of euthanasia. If a nation or a culture is murdering its unborn children, it won't be long before they will be taking the lives of those who are elderly and older in life. So you need to take a look at what the Assemblies of God position paper says on that. Also about sexual promiscuity, pornography, immorality in films, television. There's a report that's been done that said that the TV habits of Christians are basically the same as non-Christians. How about same-sex marriages and relationships? We really should, as a church, have an attitude of love for the person, but not acceptance and condoning of the sin. And I know many people today say that that's just something that's happening in our culture. Well, friends, God has a very strong statement about same-sex relationships. How about child abuse? It's so important that ministers guard the children of the congregation that are placed into your care. You need to be sure that you do a good screening process for those who are working with your children. How about capital punishment? And also, how about racial issues? Our churches need to be congregations that are for all nations, so that people of every race and every language feel welcomed and loved in our churches. So now let's go into looking at ethics in the practical side of ministry. I'm going to touch on a number of things that I hope will be a benefit to you and that you'll find helpful. It's important that you and I recognize that the way that we handle money is so important, that people are looking at us and how that we handle our finances. For example, when you go into a church, go to candidate for a church. If you go there in good faith and the church is financially struggling and you say, well, they can't afford to give us a full-time salary, then maybe you ought to withdraw your name as a candidate, or you need to ask them if you could work part-time. There's great power in the ethical example of a pastor and a minister. You can raise the ethical and moral and spiritual level of your congregation just by your example. And pastors need to have high ethical standards, because the foundation of our ethics is what will help people to be able to love us. And when you enter into situations where you're, as a pastor, also doing counseling, it's remember, keep your counseling to spiritual counseling And if people are dealing with very serious personal issues, private issues, refer them to a Christian counselor. And it's also very important to keep confidences. Situations where confidences cannot be held from a minister, though, are important to know. First, if someone tells you that they're going to commit a crime, you need to take action to stop them from committing that crime. And second, to avoid becoming an accessory before the fact of the crime. And of course, third, very important today, you have to report child abuse or endangerment situations. Those are difficult decisions sometimes, but they are very important to protect the lives of people and also children. Now, another topic dealing with your spiritual leadership is how you relate with former parishioners. I pastored in 2 different churches in Ohio, and I was in one 28 years and another one 8 years. And when I left that congregation, I had to realize that I had to take my influence and my role as a spiritual leader to leave those congregations, even though I love those people and I still have some contact with them. But I had to do that to allow the new pastor to have opportunity to bond with the congregation. So important to do that. Another part of our caring and ministry and ethics as a pastor is, how do you relate to your peers? And how do you maintain professional relationships? Healthy relationships with fellow pastors are very important in the ministry. You know, the ministry can be very lonely, and you can find yourself wondering, do I have any real friends? I encourage you, find a minister friend. It doesn't even have to be an Assemblies of God pastor, but somebody that you can talk to and just share your heart and be yourself with. Always make sure you give respect and credit to your predecessor in ministry. Whenever you leave a church or when you go to a church, speak highly of the person who was there before you. And make sure your heart is right when you leave a congregation. That's a matter of integrity. You know, it may be hard, but we need to make sure you leave a church in the right manner. And how do you handle ethically when hurt members of another church attend your church? That's a very important question. First time they attend, I recommend welcome them with no comment. The second time they come, you should talk with them more about their situation. And your goal should be to try to get them to go back to their former church and former pastor and deal with unresolved issues. And then fourth, I encourage this: contact their former pastor if they continue to come and want to be a part of your church, and discuss their issues before they come to your church. That's very important. It'll save you headaches, and it will help you in ministering to those people. It's also very important to participate in local ministers' associations so that the community knows you are a kingdom-minded person. In both the communities that I was in Kent and Montgomery, I participated all the time in community groups, local ministerial groups, and it helped me to build friendships that I still have to this day. And also another ethical issue for us as ministers is when you make a commitment to a fellowship or a denomination, it's important for you to affirm the doctrine of that group. And as long as you have a membership and license with that group, if you disagree with some doctrinal issues, contact the leadership. And if a minister, if you can't resolve those issues, doctrinal issues, and you feel it's something you can't sign with once a year, then it's important for you to voluntarily withdraw from that group. Very important, maintaining professional relationships. How about you as a minister and money? Wow, can't say enough about this one. Developing a proper attitude towards money is critical for successful ministry. Things like paying your bills on time. It's a part of a good testimony to your family and to your community. I can tell you, when I first went to a church, the church had not been paying its bills in a timely manner in the community. And I had businessmen asking me about if I was going to help the church to pay its bills. And I said, yes, we will do that. Also, 2 income tax incentives for ministers are the minister's housing allowance and accountable reimbursement plan for expenses. I encourage you strongly, check out the housing allowance and reimbursement expenses with your church. Another one is Social Security exemption. Now, this is a topic that I've had, now that I am in my 60s, I've had pastors who have been friends of mine for many years who have said that they wish they had never gotten out of Social Security. The law says that ministers have the right to waive Social Security, but the only basis is if you say you will not participate in Social Security and receive any financial benefit from the government. Good retirement programs are very important for financial planning. If you're in your 20s, you should already be investing now into your retirement program. Check into it. The Assemblies of God Ministers Retirement Program is excellent, and it's something that you want to be a part of. I know that you'll find it to be very meaningful and helpful. Now, let me just say, this is so important for you. I'm trying to deal with some practical issues here. You know, the way that you handle your money, the way that you pay your bills will have a profound impact upon not only your family, but also your church and the people in your community. Receiving Social Security, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're paying into it. And I can assure you that few people are disciplined enough to continually, monthly, be putting money away somewhere where it's accruing interest that will help you to be able to pay for and support you when you do retire. My wife and I receive Social Security, and I also do some part-time teaching, which is helpful. But you need to start, if you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s, whatever age you are, get involved in a retirement program. And the Assemblies of God has an excellent, excellent program. Now let's talk about another topic that's so important when it comes to ethics and morals. The minister and sexuality. Male and female pastors must be wise and honest about their sexuality. There's a good book entitled And the Shofar Blew by Francine Rivers. It's a novel. It gives a pastor's wife's perspective. I encourage you, get a copy of it and read it. My wife speaks of it very highly, and I've read it. God designed sex to be a beautiful, wonderful thing within the covenant confines of marriage. And I encourage you as a pastor, get some good Christian materials. A book that I recommend is called The Gift of Sex, A Guide to Sexual Fulfillment by Clifford and Joyce Penner. That will be helpful. You know, marriage and romance in your relationship as a couple, as a pastor and wife, is important. So talk openly with your spouse about your sexual needs. Work at loving and tender relationship with your spouse. Don't let your arguments turn into mountains. Never go to sleep. See what the Bible says? Never go to sleep angry at your spouse at night. May have some late night talks, but don't go to sleep angry at each other. Go to a marriage seminar. It'll say to your mate that you care about your marriage. Good is a good one that I highly recommend, that my wife and I taught in and have been a part of, is Marriage Encounter. And should your relationship really be in serious trouble, never let the word divorce enter your vocabulary. But go and seek good counseling. I highly recommend Emerge Counseling Center in Akron. My wife was a clinical counselor there, and we highly recommend it. And it's a counseling center that for the Assemblies of God ministers is a great blessing. Now, I just want to remind all of you, you know, these issues of ethics and morals, they affect every part of our life. And the sexual matters, our own sexuality, our marriage. I'm going to talk in this next section about counseling. And I just want to encourage you, pastors, if you're getting somebody coming with serious marriage problems, refer them to a professional counselor. And marriage and sexuality are best addressed through sermons and teachings, not in personal counseling. Take it from me, after many years of ministry, those are areas that you want to refer out to a Christian counselor. Well, God bless you, and we'll see you in the final section. God bless. Bye-bye.